We often use the phrase make new friends and meet new people synonymously, but the two are not the same. And making friends refers to the art of cultivating something meaningful with another person.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 455 with guest Danielle Bayard Jackson. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. So I just got home from speaking at Mark and Angel Chernoff. They were guests on my podcast last year. They have an annual event called Think Better, Live Better. And I was in my hotel room. I think it was on the second day. It's a 2-day event. And I was thinking to myself, you know what these events are? They're food for my soul. And I have missed it so much over the last couple of years. And all that to say, I hope that you are getting together with people who are like-minded spirits, whether it's a group of girlfriends, whether it's coworkers, happy hour or coffee, coworkers that you like, hopefully, or really awesome events like that where it's all about personal development and bettering yourselves and learning and evolving. And I don't know, there's just something incredibly powerful about being in a room with other people who have a common goal in mind. You might be on completely different parts of the path, but you're all on the same path. You're all on the same journey, and that journey is called life. So without getting too philosophical, I just hope that you have that. Speaking of, there is still a couple of days left if you listen to this podcast in real time or live or however you say it, for early bird pricing for the Daring Way retreat. And I hope that you are, and shout out to Jackie, who I ran into at the Orlando airport, who was at Disney with her family and recognized me. Like I don't get recognized very often, like literally once every few years. It happens very rarely. But when I do, it's always super fun. And Jackie, you'd asked me about the retreat, and I would love to have you. But there's a handful of spots left, and early bird pricing ends on June 10th. And I would really love to have you there. If you're on the fence and you have some questions that are not answered on the info page, scroll down to the bottom of that page, andreaowen.com/retreat. And there's a link in there for you to book a quick call with me. Speaking of friendships, we had Shasta Nelson, on a few weeks ago, and today we have another friendship expert. And I think we can't hear enough about this from different experts, and I couldn't just have one person on talking about it. And so today we have the lovely Danielle Bayard Jackson. And so for those of you who are new to her, let me tell you a little bit about her. Danielle Bayard Jackson is a certified friendship coach and national speaker dedicated to teaching women how to create and maintain meaningful female friendships. She has been featured in NBC News for her expertise, and her advice has been quoted in several other media outlets, including Psychology Today, Well and Good, the Tampa Bay Times, and The Insider. Danielle shares her insight weekly on the Friend Forward podcast, answering women's most pressing questions about navigating conflict in female friendships. Her advice of connection, loneliness, and socializing has gone viral on TikTok, and her following of 176,000 plus continues to grow. So without further ado, here is Danielle. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
I'm excited to talk to you. We were definitely having one of those chit chats where the hour could go by and we can just be chatting about all different things that have nothing to do with recording for the audience. So we are ready to talk about friendships. And I love this topic so much. I actually have a best friend that she came into my life in 2009, and it has been the most probably the most, I don't have any other word for it except mature. It's like the most mature friendship with a woman that I've ever had in my life. And by mature, I just mean we have both been on the personal development journey and learned how to communicate and learned how to have really difficult conversations that are honest, but loving and kind. And so I often hear, I'm so jealous of your relationship with Amy. Like, tell us how you found each other. Tell us how you have that friendship. And so I am so excited to have you come on to talk about this. And so let's start with, because I love science. And can you tell us what are some research-based ways a woman can both create and maintain platonic relationships, their friendships?
Yeah. And I appreciate you starting with your story because, when I do speak to different people who are in strong friendships, they tell me that a question that they often get is people being like, how did you form this? How do I,
how did you maintain it? That's what I
how do you
hear.
keep it going? Yeah. And what's funny is, I'm in the middle of writing my book right now, Fighting for Our Friendships. And I'm learning a lot about, research-based evidence regarding the fragility of women's friendships specifically. So it's not just in our head. And I could see why they're, jealous of what you've got going on and want that for themselves. Research tells us that, it's not our income status or our marital status that is the single greatest factor contributing to our life satisfaction and well-being. It's the quality of our relationships. So I think there's something kind of intuitive for the person who's like hungry for friendship, because it's the biggest thing that's going to determine if you are satisfied with your life. So when it comes to making friends to satisfy that need, the first tip I like to give is to start with the people which I know is not like a sexy revolutionary tip, but research also points to a lot of the people who become our friends served another role beforehand. So she was your neighbor or your stylist or your classmate, and so we have to look at what we already have and start to entertain the idea of turning these people into friends. I always say that we often use the phrase make new friends and meet new people synonymously, but the two are not the same. And making friends refers to the art of cultivating something meaningful with another person. And who says that has to start from scratch? So can you look at the people who are already in your network and decide to be intentional about reaching out and trying to create something that's a little bit deeper. The second tip I like to give is to make your desire known. A lot of us feel maybe a little shame or embarrassment around saying like, man, I would like some more friends. But it's like, if I could put all the women I've had sessions with in a room, I think they'd just be like, oh my gosh, like there are other people just like me who are hungry for connection. So can you reach out to somebody who I like to refer to as a super connector, these extroverts who like to bring people together? Could you reach out to that person and say, hey, I'm trying to get more plugged in and I thought of you because you're always out and about and doing something fun with people. And I just was wondering, is there anything around town you think is worth checking out? The subtext there is the same. I'm saying I'd like to get connected with other people, but I'm saying in a way that's very matter of fact. And you'd be surprised how eager people are to help you if only you would make it known. And then the final tip I'd give is when you show up to a place, consider going more than once. And with you become a regular somewhere, like at a coffee shop or somewhere that you go to frequently, can you do it with consistency? Because that tends to breed familiarity with the other people who are there. And that's a good foundation for creating something, is just somebody who feels familiar and you see their face all the time. That's a good starting point. So those are some things that are actionable like today, but they require a little courage and a little reframing.
Okay. I love that. It sounds so much like dating, like looking for an intimate partner. It's not all that different, is it?
I don't think so. And that's so funny. I always chuckle to myself when I see those comments on like my TikTok videos and things like that. People like, oh my gosh, girl, this feels like dating. And I'm like, well, kind of. And I think maybe why it surprises us is because we have all this language around friendship, like friends forever, best friends forever. So we think that like I make this friend and then I'm done. I'm set. And that's not the case. And so the idea of having to continuously make friends, start conversations, see if you like her, see if you're compatible. It is having a lot of parallels to the romantic world.
Okay. I'm curious what kind of advice you would give to this, because I get pushback sometimes when a client might ask me, I have this acquaintance, she's my neighbor, she's another mom at my kid's school, and we have a lot of chemistry when we get together, but we don't see each other that often. And I would really like to get to know her better. And I don't know what to do. And I always say, you have to, tell her it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel awkward. And you can even say that. You can preface it and say something like, this feels really awkward. Like I'm asking you on a date, but I really love hanging out with you. I dig you. I think you're really cool. And I would love to go and have coffee or even have like a play date with our kids so we can get to know each other better. What do you think? And I get like deer in the headlights.
I love that you say that. I love that. That's your advice. It would be my advice too.
Okay, good. I'm not throwing people in the deep end. I'm like, good luck with life.
I'm like, that's a horrible idea. That's horrible. Yeah, no, it starts with, kind of goes back to that theme of saying what you want. And I know it feels weird. And to your point, sometimes we can soften the awkwardness by calling it out. Yeah. And who doesn't want to hear like, man, I like you. You're interesting. I want to spend time with you. I think we want to feel desired even in our platonic relationships. So starting by telling her you enjoy her company, I feel like is a really great place to start.
Yeah, I did this. It must have been pre-COVID, but I played tennis there was probably a group of like 15 women. And there was this one woman, her name's Shannon, and she was so funny and we got along so well. We definitely had chemistry. And she sent me a text one day. It was like during the day. She's like, I know this is super last minute, but do you want to go see a movie? And I couldn't go. And because I was so happy that she reached out and asked me, and I was bummed that I couldn't go, I said, today it's a bad day. I've got back-to-back appointments, but please ask me again. Or I could have said something like, do you want to do something next week? Instead of just saying no, thank you, because we're humans, then she might feel like, oh, maybe she doesn't really want to hang out with me. Like we make up all these stories. So I made a point to say, I'm so glad that you asked. I'm so glad that you reached out. Please ask me again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that for you too. That's really sweet. And I wish more of us could do that. Sometimes we have to kind of just like flip the perspective for a second. And so a lot of us will say, well, I guess they're not interested. Like they haven't texted me. She hasn't reached out. I guess she's just too busy. I guess, yeah. I'm more invested than she is. Oh, wow. I get her message loud and clear. But if I were to ask you, okay, well, who's somebody whose company you enjoy well enough, but you haven't gotten around to it, or you're a little nervous that she like would reject you. Okay. Is it possible that she could be operating under the same conditions, that she's either fearful of rejection or that she's got so much going on with the kids and she'd like to, hang out with you, but currently she's struggling to just tend to the things that are the most urgent every day, And so, it's the reframing, but I love that was something you communicated to your friend.
Well, thank you. It came with a lot of failed experiences, like well into my 40s now. What advice would you give first? Because I hear this a lot too, like when someone is in a friendship, like I actually have a client right now who goes on walks like a couple times a week with her neighbor. And she says, I share things with her and tell her a little bit more vulnerable and intimate things about my life, but she doesn't share anything about hers. She's super private. She's super tight-lipped, and it's beginning to feel one-sided. And I don't know how to approach it. So how would you just say that someone should move on, or what advice do you have for that? Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ladies, are you over 40 like me and dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, some vaginal dryness, or weight gain? Don't just accept it as part of aging. These symptoms are often linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. At MIDI Health, they get it. Their experts know what you're going through and how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause specialists offering safe, effective, FDA approved solutions. And guess what? MIDI Care is covered by insurance. So stop pushing through it alone. Schedule a virtual visit and dive deep into your unique symptoms and health background. You'll walk away feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. Visit MIDI Health today and reclaim your well-being. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. joinmidi.com.
Yeah, so that's tricky. I just had a client with the same issue. She has a mom friend and she feels like she's always confessing her hardships and how difficult it is, but the other woman just listens, but never says, oh my gosh, me too. I struggle too. And so it doesn't feel like a rewarding friendship for her. And, it's a balance. There's a balance between, we definitely want to respect other people's natural pacing for self-disclosure and we want to be mindful. But, we also have a desire for reciprocity in all of its forms, especially women when it comes to sharing, because that's how we kind of measure and establish trust and closeness. So I don't want to feel like I'm out here by myself telling you all these things. Like, I don't know you, share something about yourself. And so, sometimes there's a couple things we could do. One, it can be direct and you can say like, you know what, here I am rambling away. And I feel like even though we walk every day, I don't know much about you. I mean, that's a way to kind of say it, but I'm not accusatory. I'm not like, gosh, I say all these things, but you don't, because who wants to respond out of obligation like that?
Right.
And then also framing it this way allows her to choose what qualifies as revealing more of herself. It might be with a personal failure. It might just be with what she did that week, but letting her know, hey, I have a desire to know more about you. She might not realize that she's fallen into just listener mode and doesn't share as much. And so that's a way to invite her instead of accuse her, is to express a desire. But if after making it known, you still feel like it's not enough, then find a way to maybe manage what you share so there's no resentment and feeling like I share more than she does. Or, turn to other friends who are as open and share the same desire for, self-disclosure.
Yes. So it's not a matter of saying like, oh, I've been talking so much. I would love to hear about all of your marriage struggles.
Right.
On the spot.
Exactly. Yeah. And I always say too, self-disclosure or maybe I should say vulnerability takes more forms, other than self-disclosure. But I know a lot of times when we think about vulnerability, our minds go straight to like an image of us like bawling our eyes out or telling a secret about what happened when we were 10. And I always say like, that's like a level 10, but vulnerability, the best way I've heard it described was from Dr. Marissa Franco. And she said, it means you feel comfortable taking a risk being rejected. And so that doesn't necessarily have to happen with the big ones. It could happen with like a level 1 or 2. So an example I often give is, let's say I join a new friend group and they say, oh, Danielle, we meet for brunch every other Saturday. But, since you're new to the group, how about you pick out the restaurant that we go to next week? There might be a little bit of hesitation inside of me because I'm thinking, oh gosh, like what if I pick something and they think it's lame or it's like too expensive or too cheap or whatever. But I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to pick a place and that's where we're going to go. There's a little vulnerability in that for me because there's a chance they might reject what I'm offering on the table. And so as long as we look at it that way, 1 and 2 vulnerabilities, level 1s and 2s could consist of, trying something new in front of your friend. And you might look a little foolish, but you're going to do it anyway. Or, telling her that you like her, like you mentioned just a couple moments ago. That is vulnerability because there's a chance she does not feel the same way. And so can you see the other ways that she's sharing vulnerably or doing vulnerable things that don't necessarily look like her telling you about her divorce or her addictions or her traumas,
Okay. So you've mentioned level 1 and level 2 a couple of times. Can you explain what that is? I'm making assumptions of what it is, but I would love to know exactly what it is.
Oh yeah, just in terms of in terms of vulnerability, and I use it kind of arbitrarily, but meaning like, level 1 could be saying, man, I really enjoy talking to you. Like we have to do this again. It's a level 1. Like I'm not going to feel super betrayed or devastated if she doesn't follow up on my coffee, invitation, but I did put myself out there. A level 10 might be, sharing a difficulty I'm having in my marriage. And if she, shares this with somebody else, I'm going to feel really exposed. Like that might be like a level 10, level 5 might be me saying, might be me telling her, something she did that made me feel some kind of way, which we don't consider vulnerability, is addressing things inside of the friendship. And maybe I don't make it, awkward and intense, but saying like, listen, you mentioned this the other day, and I don't know, I always get a little cringy whenever you use that word. It makes me feel some kind of way. Hopefully she's responding with, oh my gosh, I had no idea. That's my bad. I didn't mean it like that, but I hear you. And we move on,
right.
But even having the courage to tell a friend, hey, what you did or said rubbed me the wrong way, is risky. Because we don't want to lose the friendship. So that's vulnerable too. And so there's kind of like this scale of like what feels risky to you, but it's going to be different for each person. And the last thing I'll say on this is there are often people who try to manufacture closeness with other women by sharing. And that is,
I've done that so many times.
Yeah. Oh, and I
gossip.
Have too. I think
gossip.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Which research shows that we actually do feel close to people when there's something in common that we don't like, so being like, oh my gosh, she's so annoying. Oh my God, I know she's annoying. So it works. I don't know that it's sustainable in a friendship, but it works.
Or doesn't build trust. Cause I know if you're talking about somebody else, you're talking about me when I'm not there.
Exactly. I'm like, give me the tea, but I'm not telling you any of my business.
Yep.
So, we just have to be mindful of all those things, but when we get it right and we find a rhythm, it can make for a very rewarding friendship.
What advice do you have for women who have been hurt before specifically in their female friendships? I know a lot of women come with the mother wound is not uncommon, but specifically in their friendships with women, and they come to you and they say, I just don't trust women. I have not had great experiences, and I just don't think that the friendships are worth it. How do you work with someone on that?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. A lot of people don't bring that up. It's all like fluffy friendship stuff. But I know that there are women who, for whatever reason, have almost like an aversion to female friends. But what's so funny to me is, I'm a female friendship coach, and those women are signing up for coaching and insight, which says to me that there's a part of us that knows, even if they are the source of our pain, we know women to be the source of our joy as well. And so they have a hunger for female companionship, which always astounds me. And so, their experiences are totally valid. Some of them have had very traumatic things happen. And I always have two things to say to that. The first is to look at the ways in which you anticipating rejection from another woman has affected how you show up with her. And not to gaslight and be like, oh, it's your fault. That's not what I'm saying. But if I expect these women to have an attitude, how did that affect how I walked in the room?
Yeah.
How did that affect whether I spoke to them or not? Or if I went straight to the drinks and kind of rolled my eyes and sat down because I assume that you have an issue with me, so little things like that, be mindful of. And then the second thing I would say is to make it known. If you do start to, chat with a woman and she seems kind of cool, but you're scared that it's only a matter of time before she shows her true colors, to say like, man, I enjoy hanging out with you. I got to tell you, I haven't, hung out with women in a long time because, I had some things go down, but I'm really enjoying you. And I don't think that puts pressure on. But again, a lot of it goes back to being able to say aloud the scary thing, but it helps to give context to other people. Like that communicates to me like, ooh, okay, like maybe I need to be more tender with her, or it's very important to her that I show up when I say I'm going to show up, so it helps for me to have that context. Maybe with another woman, me canceling last minute, kind of annoying, but my friends get it. But maybe for you, that's going to be a big deal. And so, it gives me the information I need to make sure that I can care for you, in an appropriate way, to the right extent.
Yeah, I love all that. And I'm glad that you mentioned that not a lot of people bring it up, but I don't think it's that uncommon. I've had a couple of people come to my retreats and have said at the very end, because it's a built-in container. It's on shame work. It's the daring way. It's the, I'm trained and certified in Brene Brown's work. So we are there for a specific, like people aren't surprised when they walk in and like everybody's being vulnerable. So it's this space that I've created. And at the end, I've had a handful of women say, and I didn't know this ahead of time. They said, I've always struggled in my relationships with women and this, and it's not that they're leaving with, BFFs forever and ever. Amen. It's just that it's sort of a seed planted in them that makes them feel like there are women out there who are, looking into their own evolving and wanting to have intimate, vulnerable friendships that they that they nurture consciously and intentionally. So it breaks my heart when I think about women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who just have kind of given up. And we're both out there saying like, don't give up. It's out there, and I understand that it's painful and it's worth it.
Right. And I mean, like, look at you and I, we're having these conversations about women. I feel like sometimes I know there's a term for it, like in the psychology arena, but maybe not. I don't think it's self-fulfilling prophecy, something else, but where, if you expect it, then it happens. Maybe that is self-fulfilling prophecy, or you start to see evidence of the thing that you believe. But it's like, if I can encourage a woman who's listening, who is thinking like, I don't know, I'm done with women. I mean, right here, you're hearing a conversation take place between two women who love women, who would be eager to love on you, so let us be evidence of, the other argument that you're not entertaining, the other possibility, which is, it's never too late to form a bond with another woman who gets it, So something to keep in mind.
Okay. Kind of switching gears, and it's almost contradictory to what we were just talking about. You made a TikTok about female friendships and competition. So tell us your thoughts about what you said is covert competition in female friendships, and what can we do about it, if anything?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So
I have experience with this, and I have the same. Like I think back how I was in my 20s, and I'm like, I need to make some apology phone calls right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I need to do an apology tour as well. When it comes to competition, it gets such a bad rap, right? Because guys, we know to be competitive, but for a lot of us, we still see it as positive in that context. Like, oh yeah, they're competitive. Like they push back, and then they can, come back together again. And there's even research that says that they reconcile more often and faster than women do, which again, we kind of know, but it's interesting to hear the research around that. But when it comes to competition, we all do it. And if from like an evolutionary standpoint, you had to be competitive to maintain your resources. So it's not bad. We all do it. But when it comes to like a friendship and feeling like your friend's competing with you, I always say, if it gets to a point where it's she's trying to sabotage your success, and when you share something really amazing that happened, she can't bring herself to congratulate you, or she finds a way to like point out the flaw and the thing that you're celebrating, that's one thing. But if you feel a little sense of competition, I feel like to a small degree that it's normal. And the only reason I say that is because whenever you're in the company of other women, it makes you think about your own womanhood. Like if I'm in the company of a bunch of women, I might think that I'm not beautiful, or question how I'm dressed or how I'm talking, or, my presence, because it's like a mirror. Like we are a representation of womanhood to each other, and we're trying out different versions. So I might see different women, and it makes me feel some kind of way by extension, just because I'm in proximity to my mirrors of what it's like to be a woman in this world. And so I feel like that does give us some measure of like competing, but I feel like if it's only to the point of it's making you better, like, man, my friend, finally bought that new house she's been aiming for. And gosh, I want a house like that too. But what do I do with that feeling? Does it drive me to, to do whatever it takes to get more serious about home ownership? Or am I chipping away at her house? And when I go over for the housewarming party, I point out the fact that like the roof is sagging, you know what I mean? Like, what does that look like? But if you find yourself constantly in competition with other people, I just feel like that would be exhausting. Yeah. When do you ever feel like, okay, I'm on top? And then also, do you want to feel like that with the people you befriend? Like, okay, I'm better than them. I mean, like, what does that say? So I feel like if that's an issue for someone, that's when I'm like, okay, you need to maybe go do some therapy work. And that's not my lane, because until then, I don't know that you'd be able to even enjoy a healthy relationship with another person.
If that's the goal the whole time. Yeah. I have definitely been in that place where my paycheck ran out before the next one got here. Life doesn't happen bi-weekly, so why should payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use Earnin to pay for a girls' night out, a last-minute gift for a loved one, or even summer camp for the kids. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability, security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in noise under podcast when you sign up. It really, really helps the show. Noise under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. It's hard to find a great mentor who can help me level up. My dream mentor, Shonda Rhimes. So I was really excited when I heard she has a class on Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. I'm always looking for ways to be a better writer, so I took Shonda Rhimes' screenwriting class. It helped me gain concrete technical advice, including structuring, the writing process, and with shows under her belt like Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton, it was so helpful. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/Andrea. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/Andrea. Masterclass.com/Andrea. This is sort of just like a logistical question that I think like people are probably curious about. How long does it take to make friends? Like if you, like what is realistic if someone, say someone moves to a new city and they do everything that you tell them to do. They join the groups. And like, for instance, I was recently feeling kind of lonely in my friendships here locally. And so I decided to join the PTO because I'm like, I know how to be around other women, join these groups and, go to the gym and like all these kind of the basics. And for someone listening who's either thinking about doing those things or planning it or is doing it, how long should they expect it to take?
Love that question. So, there's a research study out of the University of Kansas by Jeffrey Hall, and he attempted to quantify, friendship making. What does that look like in terms of hours? And so, they found that it takes about 50 hours to consider somebody a friend, 90 to consider them a close friend, and 200 to consider them a best friend. And this is where people kind of gasp like, wait, shut your mouth. I do not have 200 hours to, and I have two things to say to the awe that we're experiencing when we hear those numbers. The first is, I hope it shows us two things. One, how intentional you need to be about spending time with other people. And a lot of us will have like a couple coffee dates and we're like, okay. And we expect that to sustain us for like the next couple months. And it doesn't work that way. So I often make the joke if, I wonder if after coffee, if we could see like a time counter on each other's foreheads and we're like, okay, we're at 36 hours. Do you want to see a movie next weekend? I wonder how that would change things if we could see it. But the other thing that I hope that gives us as a takeaway is you are going to have to be intentional about the people who you want to prioritize as like your top tier people, because time is a limited resource. And so my extroverts who want to work the room and spend time with everybody, you are going to experience plentiful friendships that have no depth. Because you cannot spend 200 hours with 15 friends. And so who are those top 3 to 5 people who it really matters to you to like grow something meaningful with them? That's who you're going to need to kind of dedicate some time to, maybe more than others. So, there are a couple ways that research finding can inform how we operate in friendship. But if you do show up one time and it felt okay, and then you don't make plans to hang out again, you are going to end up feeling empty again, because it's like you've burned out that fuel. You need more hours.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I wasn't surprised by those answers. I'm thinking about my friendship with Amy and I was like, that sounds about right. Like it just, it just takes time. When I think back on it, it took time and it took intention. And one of the things that she did from the get-go, which I think is kind of rare, and also it works and it helps just put everything out there, is that when we met for the first time, it's kind of a funny story. We met at the Coaches Training Institute, where it's the school that we were trained in life coaching. And when you are done with all of the weekend classes, you can come back and be an assistant to the master coaches. And so that's how we met. We both came back and we were assistants. At the end of the weekend, they do this sort of ritual where they put all the chairs in a circle and everyone goes around the room, and you have like a couple of minutes to say whatever you want to say to the group. And then at the end you say, "And I am complete." And so I was first, and I, said all the things I was supposed to say. I was so proud of all of the students there, and thank you to the leaders, and blah, blah, blah. And so then it's Amy's turn, and she's sitting next to me and she starts crying, and she just is very emotional, and she's talking to the whole group, and she turns to me and she says, "And you, I am so glad I met you. I have been trying to manifest friendships, and you came into," and she's like giving me all these compliments. I was so uncomfortable, Danielle. Like, I was like, what is happening? But she's very demonstrative. And I don't recommend that for everyone, unless that's your personality. But my point is that she told me, like, she could have done it privately. Like, I've been like, "Hey, I dig you." It was this kind of grand gesture, which is so her. But my point is that she laid it all out there and was like, "Hey, I like you. And I am really trying to have more friendships in my life. And if you like me too, I would love to be your friend." And I mean, I probably wouldn't go about it the way that she did, but that was such an example of someone who just says right from the beginning, "Hey, I want to be your friend." But also I think was really telling that she had made it a goal in her life. She was like, "I am going to make more friends, like good friends. And it's going to take some time."
Yeah. Yeah. And I know some of us could be like, whoa, slow your roll. But
I was very much like that.
And I think I would have been too. You know what? I think a lot of us would be, which is so funny because we're here saying like, I'm going to say what I want, put myself out there. But if somebody does it to me, I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And I think that is a paradox a lot of us live in, because we think, well, the person who doesn't have friends, what's wrong with them? But at the same time, like, we want friends too. But then to say it out loud, we're like, what's wrong that you don't have them? And it's so foreign to us to declare affection early on in a platonic context. Now, if romantically a guy who you're into, or a guy's like, "Hey, I really like you," or like, "You're beautiful," we're like, "Ooh, okay," But with the woman, we're like, well, like, what's going on? Like, does she not have friends? And it's just such an interesting way that we relate to other women platonically, and then, our romantic partners. But good for her for saying what she needs. I wonder if it's foreign too, because so much of our communication as women is intuitive and it's subtext. And we have a lot of ideas circulating around, like, she just gets me. We have this chemistry. It's unspoken. And it's a very romantic notion. But I think the other side of that is, when somebody does say something aloud, we feel some kind of way about it because we believe everything should just kind of be like organic and unspoken. But then it leads to a lot of misunderstandings, right? We've seen that 100%. Before, where it's like, well, I shouldn't have to say it. Like, my friend should just know. And then the friend's
how
like,
could you not know?
Yeah. So, so good for her for saying it. But I know that, at the end of the day, it's about compatibility and a reciprocal interest in things like that.
Okay. I know it's an unusual story. It is kind of funny. She tells it a little bit differently, but I have a question for you about this one particular topic that I opened my big mouth one time. I was playing tennis with a bunch of women, and someone made this comment, and I'm curious how you would respond to this. It was just some casual conversation about women or something. And one of the women said, "Well, you know how women are, they're so catty or we're so catty," or something like that. What would you say in response to that? I can already tell based I had a feeling you were going to say, "Yeah, we are."
Oh God, that's rough. Well, you're asking me two different questions, because you're asking what I would say. And then there's like the advice I'd give to someone to say.
Can you give me both? If they're different, I would love to know. like in a casual context where you're not Danielle, the friendship expert,
right?
And you knew these women, at least, they weren't like your besties, but you were friends with them. What I'm curious what you would say.
Oh God, that's hard. I think I gotta, okay, let me be honest. Let me keep it real. Okay. If I were out there in that situation and women said, well, women are so catty, I think I probably would make a playful joke about, oh my gosh, come on, you're perpetuating that stereotype too, or something like that, where I'm doing the girl stop kind of thing, playfully to like engage in conversation. Or I maybe say something like, well, not all of us, or I'm not catty, or something to try to challenge your ideas or whatever. But you know what? I will say there are a lot of reasons for these stereotypes of us being catty, petty, things like that. And you know what? I blame it on the patriarchy. And here is why. Okay. I'm learning a lot about relational aggression, and both men and women do it, but it's where, we covertly maybe get back at another woman, but because we are not taught conflict resolution, right? How to work through it. No one's teaching us that at like 8 years old. Okay. It's just be nice. That's supposed to be a coverall for everything. Be nice. So I don't know how to work through this with this girl. Right. And because I'm supposed to be likable, I don't want to detract from that by telling you I have an issue with you. So I'm just going to be like, yeah, no, we're good. We're good. But I'm going to go talk to other people about it, but not necessarily because I want to be sinister and shady and manipulative, but because, I'll get a bad rap if I tell you to your face. I'm problematic. I'm confrontational. I'm being a biatch. You know what I'm saying? So we go and we work out those scenarios with somebody else in a safe space, but I'm gossiping about her. And so, personally, I've seen the way in which society culturally is set up so that we have to go underground with our aggression and our issues because it's not attractive or acceptable to do it outwardly the way a man would do. And then, my final suspicion for that is possibly because too, like we're very relational and we value connection. So we don't want to outwardly be like, oh, this is an issue. That's an issue. We want to preserve our connections. So maybe that looks like, suppressing how we feel. Maybe it comes out in a little passive aggressive way, or maybe we just don't invite you to the next social thing that we have instead of tell you. And, so I think there's a lot at play, but I do wish that we would maybe stop perpetuating that whole idea of like women are so catty as if it's something that's just inherent to being a woman.
Right. Yes. Thank you for that. Fist pumping over here. When it happened, I think I said something along the lines of, well, I have a different perspective on that. And, I think it's a cultural stereotype that we still buy into. And also, we're raised differently than boys are. And I had just done some research. Now I forget because it was a long time ago. I had just done some research for my last book where I talked about that and how, and just even as, like you were saying, like growing up, just the fact that little boys are encouraged to roughhouse teaches them resilience. And we don't get the same lessons. And what was interesting too, is that I noticed this with my husband, who's my second husband, but the way that men razz each other and just shovel shit back and forth. And I asked him one time, I'm like, you guys are kind of assholes to each other. Like, is this like a guy thing? And he's like, yeah, it just is kind of what we do. And I'm like, and it doesn't bother you? And he's like, no, I think for the most part with your friends, there are some boundaries that you just, like places you just don't go. And I found that so fascinating. And I'm like, women typically we're not like that. And like you were saying, maybe it's because there's so much subtext and we're like, what does she mean by that? Like,
yeah. And also, research shows that that women value egalitarianism in their friendships. So it's almost like an unspoken rule that we're supposed to establish sameness. And so it's like, oh my God, me too. So if you are roasting me playfully, then you're taking away from the fact that you and I are supposed to be the same. So if you're like, oh my gosh, girl, with your, chipped polish or with your, scuffed up shoes or like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, okay. Or how you can get Danielle, haha. It feels like, oh, yikes, because we're supposed to, like, I value us being the same, but men, it's about status with them. And so it's almost understood that we're going to rise and who's better and who's worse. And we can be totally fine. But for women, again, since we're so appreciative of connection, it's important to us to maintain like me and you are the same. It would, for some people, fray that friendship to feel like, she thinks she's better in any kind of way, or to playfully point at things that might be an insecurity. It's like a whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this even goes into a bigger conversation about internalized misogyny, and that, and it ties into competition and how many women are raised even in homes where they're taught to compete with each other for the attention and affection and resources of the patriarch. They're, usually their father. And that's another conversation for another time. But the last question I want to ask you is, so you're a certified friendship coach, and where would a woman be in her life where she would need a friendship coach? And if you have time, like, what do you do to help them? Do you have like a methodology that you take people through, or is it sort of custom based?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. I think that, if you overheard a woman, while you're waiting for the subway or in a coffee shop, and you overheard her saying like, yeah, I'm talking to my friendship coach tonight, you might be like, what? Like, is she struggling being social? Does she know how to talk to people? Like, what does a friendship coach do? And I get that. I always say, I think people would be surprised to know that maybe 75%, 80% of the women I work with are high achieving, charismatic, life of the party women who are strategic in every other area of their lives, and they approach friendship the same way. Hey, I need to know why this transpired with me and my friend. Hey, I want to have a talk with my friend, but I'm not sure how to say this. I want to work out some scenarios with you. They're women who approach the rest of their life in a very intentional way, and they see friendship as just the same. Women who maybe moved to a new city, and they're like, okay, how do I go about, creating a new network here? So it's very strategic in that way. But women come to me, number one issue, hands down, is how to make friends. And it always comes with some kind of qualifier. So how do I make friends as a new mom, as an introvert, as a military spouse, as a woman who has changed and evolved, and I want new friends who understand this new me, So how do I make friends is number one. The second issue is probably something around, I feel like I initiate more than my friends, or I give more than my friends give, is a big one. Yeah. And then the third would probably be trying to work through how to address something really tender with a friend, because it's like eating you up for long enough. And you want to do something, but you don't know how. And so those would be like the top three things. And as far as working through it, I'm very quick to explain, I am not a therapist. Many women use me in a supplementary way. They already have a therapist, right? But they come to me because they're ready to like take action on something. So we do talk about, what happened, what's going on, what's your friendship history looking like? What are your expectations? And once I understand all those things, we start working toward, okay, what are some of the outcomes that you would like to have? And what could you do to get there? And it's a big thing to help them understand we're co-creating these strategies together based on your relationship with this woman, based on your personality, based on what makes you feel comfortable. I can't give a one size fits all script for all these women. They're all very different. And also the personality of your friend might be different. You might be working with somebody who's very defensive. And so you're like, how do I address this? I know she's going to pop off, and so every woman's different. But I definitely see different themes emerge, and it's a blessing to be in a space where they trust me. That's with something that's so fragile and tender and personal for them.
Yeah. And important. I love that. Thank you so much for explaining that. Betterfemalefriendships.com. All the links will be in the show notes. We'll for sure have you on when your book comes out. Is there any other place that you want to send people? Besides, we'll have your TikTok link and your website. Anywhere else? You have a podcast too, right?
Yeah, the podcast is Friend Forward, and that comes out every Thursday.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to circle back to, or do you feel complete?
No, your questions were great. And I also really appreciate that you were sharing your friendship stories too. It just like makes it such a richer conversation. So I really appreciate that.
Well, next time I have you on, we can talk about all the ways that I was a shitty friend and that I have since got circled back. I think with all of them. Yeah, definitely. And that's why Facebook is so great to be able to find people and like made amends where I needed to. And that's been, so healing for, at least for me. I can't speak for the other person, but they told me, like, thank you for, and I think it was just probably typical young woman stuff, mistakes made that I didn't know how to be a good friend. I didn't know. No one ever taught me. It's not that I had terrible modeling of friendships. I just didn't no one teaches this really. Except you and some other people. So anyway, yeah, I also want to say I've definitely been there on the other side and had to clean up some messes. So thank you everyone for listening. I appreciate your time so much. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hi there. Swinging back by to say one more thing. You know how I'm always giving advice over here on the show and on social media, and a couple of those things is that I'm always telling you to ask for what you want, be clear about it, and also ask for help. So I am taking a dose of my own medicine, and I'm going to do that right now. It would be the absolute best and mean the world to me if you reviewed and subscribed to this show, Make Some Noise podcast, on whatever podcast platform of your choice. And even more importantly, it would matter so much if you shared this show. Sharing the show is one of the few ways the podcast can grow, and that also gives more women an opportunity to make some noise in their lives. You can do that by taking a screenshot when you're listening on your phone and sharing it in your Instagram or Facebook stories. If you're on Instagram, you can tag me at Hey Andrea Owen, and I try my best to always re-share those and give you a quick thank you DM. And also you can tell your friends and family about it. Tell them what you learned. Tell them a really awesome guest that you found on the show that you started following. Whatever it is, I appreciate so much you sharing about this show.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.